My beloved in Christ, did you know that Saint Teresa of Jesus received in a divine vision the secret of a blessed seed that can renew your health and free you from evil? This revelation was hidden for centuries, but today God allows it to reach you. Are you ready to receive it? Dear beloved of God, what you are about to hear can transform your life forever. Saint Teresa of Jesus, the great mystic and doctor of the church, received from the Lord an extraordinary revelation about a blessed seed that possesses the divine power to renew health and free those who use it with faith from evil. For more than 400 years, this sacred knowledge remained hidden in the saints' most intimate writings, known only to her closest religious sisters. But in these times of tribulation, when so many souls suffer illness, pain, and oppression, the Holy Spirit has allowed this grace to reach you. It is no coincidence that you have arrived here. God sees your suffering, knows your nightly tears, and knows your concerns for your health and that of your loved ones. He has prepared this moment to offer you real hope, a divine solution that comes directly from the heart of one of His most beloved saints. If you feel God has led you here for a special reason, write in the comments, Saint Teresa, pray for me. Stay with me until the end, because you will discover the exact method Saint Teresa taught to activate the power of this blessed seed and experience the renewal your soul so desperately needs. Before you begin, express your trust in the intervention of the saints. Like if you believe Saint Teresa can help you in this difficult time, and subscribe if you trust that God has a healing plan for your life. It was the year 1560 when Saint Teresa of Jesus, in the quiet of her cell at the convent of the Incarnation in Avila, experienced one of the most extraordinary mystical experiences of her spiritual life. She had just finished her evening prayers when, as she recounts in her intimate writings, the Lord showed her in a vision a small, seemingly insignificant seed that shone with a soft golden light. The saint describes this moment with words that thrill us. I saw a tiny seed in the Lord's hands, and He said to me, "My daughter, in this small creation, I have placed a power that relieves the pains of body and soul. This is my gift to my suffering children." Teresa, known for her prudence and spiritual discernment, initially doubted what she saw. She had learned to be cautious about visions, following the advice of her confessors. But this revelation was different. The Lord explained to her that this special seed had been blessed from the moment of creation to serve as divine medicine for His sick and afflicted children. It wasn't magic or superstition, but a gift from the Creator, hidden within His own creation, waiting to be discovered by pure and needy hearts. Over the following weeks, Saint Teresa began to receive more details about this mysterious seed. In her raptures, the Lord gradually revealed its extraordinary properties to her. He showed him how this small seed, when prepared and consumed with genuine faith and fervent prayer, had the ability to strengthen the body weakened by illness and purify the soul from the negative influences that oppress it. The most surprising thing of all was that this seed wasn't something exotic or difficult to obtain. The Lord, in His infinite mercy, had chosen something humble and accessible to all His children, regardless of their social or economic status. For my power is manifested in the small and simple, Jesus told Teresa during these heavenly visions. The saint began to personally experiment with this blessed seed. She herself suffered from terrible headaches, digestive problems, and very poor health that kept her bedridden for days on end. Following the instructions she received in prayer, she began to prepare and consume this seed the way the Lord had shown her. The results were astonishing. Saint Teresa wrote in a private letter to her confessor, "My father, I must tell you that my body is experiencing a relief that can only come from heaven. The pains that tormented me for years have begun to subside, and I feel a peace in my soul that I had never known before. It is as if a divine force were renewing every part of my being. But Teresa was a wise and prudent woman. Before sharing this revelation with others, she spent months praying, fasting, and seeking divine confirmation. She consulted with trusted theologians and submitted her experience to the Church's discernment. All agreed that there was nothing contrary to the Catholic faith in what she had received. Gradually, Teresa began to share this knowledge with the sisters in her convent, whom she trusted the most. First, with her beloved Anne of St. Bartholomew, her secretary and closest confidant, then with other nuns who suffered from serious illnesses and needed urgent relief. Testimonies began to multiply within the walls of the convent. Sisters who had been ill for years experienced remarkable improvements. Others who suffered from profound sadness and spiritual discouragement found new hope and energy to continue their religious life. Saint Teresa established very clear rules regarding the use of this blessed seed. It was always to be prepared with prayer, never as a magical or superstitious remedy. Faith in God was the most important ingredient, not the seed itself. It is faith that heals, the saint wrote. The seed is only the instrument God uses to manifest His mercy. She also warned that this grace should not be commercialized or used for material gain. It was a free gift from God to alleviate the suffering of His children, especially the poorest and most helpless. Anyone who uses this knowledge to enrich themselves gravely offends the Lord, she firmly warned. During the last years of her life, Saint Teresa was very selective about whom she shared this revelation with. She feared it would be misinterpreted or misused. She only confided all the details about the preparation and use of this miraculous seed to her most spiritually mature disciples. When Saint Teresa died in 1582, this knowledge was preserved in the private writings she left to her religious community. For centuries, it remained a hidden treasure known only to a few Carmelite nuns who passed it on with great care and reverence. Now, dear sister, after more than 400 years, this sacred knowledge reaches you. It is no coincidence. It is God's will that in these difficult times, when so many people suffer illness and anguish, this special grace be revealed again for the good of needy souls. After Saint Teresa's death in 1582, her most intimate writings were carefully preserved by the Mother Superiors of Carmel. Among these documents were revelations about the blessed seed. But the historical circumstances of that time meant that this knowledge remained hidden for centuries. The 10th century church was going through very difficult times. The Protestant Reformation had divided Christianity, and the Spanish Inquisition cautiously monitored any practice that could be misinterpreted as superstition or heresy. The ecclesiastical authorities, although they recognized Teresa's sanctity, preferred to keep private those revelations that might generate controversy or confusion among the faithful. The Carmelite sisters themselves, direct heirs to Teresian teachings, made the wise decision to preserve this knowledge only within their religious communities. They understood that the outside world was not yet ready to receive such an extraordinary revelation. The mentality of the time, marked by religious wars and mistrust, was not the right environment for this special grace to flourish. During the 10th and 17th centuries, Europe experienced periods of great spiritual turbulence. The ideas of the Enlightenment began to question everything related to faith and miracles. In this context, the Carmelite communities decided to protect the mystical writings of their founder even more jealously. They knew that revealing the secret of the blessed seed in those times could bring persecution and misunderstanding. Furthermore, there was a deeply spiritual reason for keeping this divine gift hidden. Saint Teresa herself had warned that this grace should only be shared with people of mature faith and pure hearts. Do not throw your pearls before swine, she recalled the words of the gospel. The saint understood that in the wrong hands, this knowledge could be distorted and used for purposes contrary to God's will. The Carmelite nuns established a very careful system of oral transmission. Only the oldest and most spiritually experienced nuns knew all the details about the blessed seed. When one of these guardians of the secret was near death, she would carefully choose her successor and transmit the complete knowledge to her, always under oath of utmost discretion. During the 19th century, religious communities faced renewed persecution. Liberal revolutions expelled many religious orders from their countries, and numerous convents were forcibly closed. Amid this dispersion, some Teresian documents were lost forever. But by the grace of God, knowledge of the blessed seed survived thanks to the oral tradition maintained by the most faithful sisters. It was precisely during these difficult years that some Carmelite nuns began to discreetly use this divine remedy to help the poor and sick who sought refuge in the convents. Without publicity or attracting attention, these holy women offered relief to those most in need, always following Saint Teresa's teachings of humility and selfless service. The 20th century brought with it 2 world wars and a growing secularization of society. Many people lost their faith and turned away from traditional religious practices. In this environment, hostile to the supernatural, Carmelite communities felt it even more necessary to protect this spiritual treasure from desecration and misuse. However, there were also isolated cases where some nuns, moved by compassion for human suffering, discreetly shared this knowledge with highly virtuous Catholic families who were going through periods of serious illness. They always did so on the absolute condition of maintaining secrecy and using this grace only for pious purposes. During the second half of the 20th century, when the Second Vatican Council renewed the life of the Church, voices arose within the Carmelite communities that began to question whether the time had not come to share this divine gift more widely. They argued that Saint Teresa had been declared a doctor of the Church, which gave greater authority to her mystical teachings. However, the more prudent superiors preferred to maintain the centuries-old tradition. They believed that modern society, dominated by materialism and the search for quick fixes, could misinterpret this revelation and turn it into a kind of alternative medicine devoid of its true spiritual meaning. The situation began to change in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. The growth of Catholic charismatic renewal movements and the resurgence of interest in mystical spirituality created a more favorable environment for the reception of this type of revelation. Many Catholics began to search again for the deep roots of their faith and to value the teachings of great mystics like Saint Teresa. At the same time, the dramatic increase in chronic illness, depression, and anxiety in modern society caused many people, even those far from the faith, to begin seeking spiritual alternatives for their suffering. This context created a unique opportunity for the knowledge preserved for centuries by the Carmelites to finally be shared with a wider audience. The current superiors of the Tizian communities, after much prayer and discernment, have come to the conclusion that these times of worldwide tribulation are precisely what Saint Teresa had foreseen when she received this revelation. The pandemic, wars, the economic crisis, and widespread suffering are signs that the time has come to open this spiritual treasure for the good of suffering humanity. Therefore, dear sister, it is no coincidence that this teaching reaches your ears now. Dear daughter of God, at this moment, He is looking directly into your heart. He sees every tear you have silently shed. He knows every night you've spent awake worrying about your health or that of your loved ones. There's no pain in your life that goes unnoticed by His merciful eyes. Perhaps this morning you woke up feeling that heaviness in your body that has become your daily companion. Perhaps it's the joint pain that prevents you from moving with the freedom you enjoyed years ago. Or maybe it's that constant feeling of tiredness that doesn't ease even with rest. That fatigue that seems to have made its home in every fiber of your being. God sees how each morning it's harder for you to get out of bed, how you've had to give up activities you once enjoyed because your body no longer responds as it used to. He sees you when you look in the mirror and feel like time has been unforgiving, when you wonder if the best years of your life are already behind you. He also knows those worries that keep you up at night. The anxiety over pending medical results. The fear that the discomfort you feel is something more serious than it appears. He is present when you wake up at 3 a.m. with your heart racing, thinking about all the things that could go wrong with your health. The Lord also sees the emotional weight you carry day after day, that deep sadness that sometimes invades you for no apparent reason, that feeling of emptiness that no distraction can completely fill. He knows those moments when you feel forgotten, when life seems to go on, while you remain stuck in a place of pain and limitations. God, see how you've learned to smile at others while inside you fight battles no one else can see. He sees your efforts to stay strong in front of your family, to not worry them with your ailments, to continue being the pillar they all need, even when you yourself feel broken. He is present in those intimate moments when you turn to Him in prayer. But sometimes you feel as if your words are lost in the void. He knows those times when you have prayed for healing with all your faith, but the symptoms persist, and you begin to wonder if He is truly listening, if He truly cares about your suffering. The Lord also sees how physical pain affects your mood, how those days when the discomfort is most intense become days where everything seems more difficult, where patience runs out more quickly, and small setbacks feel like mountains impossible to climb. He sees when you have to cancel plans because your body isn't ready, when you feel guilty for not being able to give all you want to the people you love. He sees your frustration when others don't fully understand what you're going through, when they minimize your pain or suggest solutions you've tried hundreds of times before. God knows that feeling of isolation you sometimes experience, as if you were the only person in the world going through these difficulties. See, when you compare yourself to other people your age who seem to have more energy and better health, and you wonder why you had to walk this thorny path, the Lord is also present in those moments of despair, when you feel like you've tried everything within your reach and nothing seems to really work. When you visited doctors, taken medications, followed strict diets, tried natural remedies, and even though some have given you temporary relief, the underlying problem persists. He observes how this physical suffering has also affected your spiritual life. He sees when you find it difficult to concentrate during prayer because the pain distracts you, when going to Mass becomes a considerable physical effort, when your energy is so diminished that even reading the Bible feels like a chore. God knows those moments when you've been tempted to give up, discouragement, about to overcome your faith. He sees when you've thought that perhaps this is your cross and that there's no choice but to carry it until the end of your days, accepting that joy and well-being are privileges that others enjoy, but that they don't belong to you. But dear sister, there's something I want you to know with absolute certainty. God has not abandoned you in the midst of your pain. Every moment of suffering you have experienced has touched His fatherly heart. He has not remained indifferent to your situation, but has been preparing a special response for you. That is why Saint Teresa received that extraordinary revelation about the Blessed Sea. Because God knew that this moment would come in your life when you would need a tangible manifestation of His love and mercy. He has allowed this knowledge preserved for centuries to reach you precisely at the exact moment when you need it most. your suffering has not been in vain. Every pain you have experienced, every sleepless night, every tear shed has been like a silent prayer ascending to the throne of divine grace. In the oldest archives of the Carmel of Avila, jealously guarded for more than 4 centuries, are written testimonies that have remained hidden from the world until now. These are letters, personal diaries, and accounts from Saint Teresa's own sisters that document the extraordinary effects of that blessed seed that the saint had received through divine revelation. Sister Maria de San Jose, one of Saint Teresa's closest companions, wrote this in her personal diary in 1578. Mother Teresa gave me that special seed that the Lord showed her in a vision. I had been plagued for 3 years by constant fevers that no doctor could cure. On the 3rd day of taking it, as she taught me, the fevers completely ceased. It's as if my body had been renewed by a force from heaven. The testimony of Srana de la Incarnation dated 1580 is even more impressive. This nun suffered from terrible joint pain that prevented her from performing her daily tasks in the convent. She wrote, "The founding mother prepared the blessed seed for me with her own hands. She told me to take it for 9 consecutive days, always accompanying it with the prayer she taught me. On the 5th day, I was able to get up without pain, and on the 9th day, I felt 20 years younger." But these testimonies were not limited to the nuns of the convent. In a letter to her confessor, Saint Teresa recounts the case of Donna Isabel de Ulloa, a noble woman from Avila who had been left disabled after a fall. This good woman came to our convent seeking spiritual comfort. The Lord moved me to share the secret of the seed with her. She faithfully followed my instructions for a month. Today she came back walking on her own 2 feet to thank me. But I told her to give thanks to our Lord, who is the one who works these wonders. During the 10th and 16th centuries, the Carmelites continued to document extraordinary cases among trusted Catholic families who knew this secret. The testimony of Father Francisco Mendoza dated 1642. My wife had been unable to sleep for 5 years due to constant pain throughout her body. The court physicians could find no cure for her illness. A Carmelite nun out of Christian charity shared with her the secret of Saint Teresa. In 3 weeks, my wife had completely recovered her health and rest. The case of Maria Gonzalez, a peasant woman from Segovia, was recorded in 1698 by the chaplain of the local convent. This 60-year-old woman suffered from a stomach ailment that had reduced her to skin and bones. Unable to keep down any food, the Carmelite nuns took pity on her condition and provided her with seed prepared according to the teachings of Saint Teresa. Within 2 weeks, her digestion began to improve, and within a month, she had regained weight and strength. Today, 5 years later, she enjoys perfect health. Throughout the 19th century, despite the persecution of religious orders, surprising testimonies continued to emerge. Sister Carmen del Santissimo Sacramento wrote from exile in France in 1836, "Although we have had to abandon our convent in Spain, we carry with us the treasure that Saint Teresa bequeathed to us. Here in France, we have helped many afflicted souls. Madame Rousseau, a widow who raised her 6 children alone, suffered from such profound melancholy that she could barely get out of bed. With the blessed seed and much prayer, she regained the joy of living. In the 20th century, during the Spanish Civil War, the Carmelite nuns preserved moving testimonies about Esperanza de Jesus. She recounted in 1938, "In the midst of so many calamities and sufferings, the Lord allows us to continue comforting the afflicted. A mother came to us with her 12-year-old son, who had lost his speech after the bombings. The child was completely mute. We prepared the seed, following our Holy Mother's instructions exactly. After a month, the child spoke again, and with him, hope returned to that devastated family. More recently, the archives of Carmel of Pastana preserved the testimony of Carmen Ruiz, dated 1975. I had very advanced diabetes and doctors had lost hope of controlling it. An elderly nun who had known Saint Teresa's secret all her life took pity on my situation. Following her instructions to the letter, my body began to respond in ways the doctors described as inexplicable. Today, 15 years later, I live without the complications that tormented me so much. Rosa Martin's testimony from 1989 is also extraordinary. After my husband's death, I fell into such a deep depression that I found no reason to go on living. My children were desperate, watching me waste away day after day. A nun at Carmel told me about the seed of Saint Teresa. I wasn't a big believer at the time, but desperation led me to try it. Little by little, I began to experience an inner peace I hadn't felt in years. Today, I can say that I have found the joy of living again. All these testimonies, dear sister, are not tales or legends. They are real documents preserved with the greatest care by Carmelite communities for more than 400 years. They represent just a small sample of the thousands of cases where the blessed seed of Saint Teresa has restored hope to broken hearts and health to ailing bodies. During those days of divine revelation in her cell at the convent of the Incarnation, Saint Teresa not only received knowledge about the blessed seed, but the Lord also taught her the specific prayers that should accompany its preparation and consumption. These sacred words, dictated by Christ himself in a mystical vision, are the key that transforms a simple seed into a vehicle of divine grace. In her most intimate writings, Saint Teresa explains, "The Lord made me understand that the words of prayer are like the keys that open the gates of heaven. Without them, the seed remains like any other fruit of the earth, but spoken with faith and sincere devotion, they become the instrument that allows divine mercy to be poured out upon the soul in need." The first prayer Saint Teresa received was to be recited while the seed was being prepared. It is an invocation that recognizes God's absolute sovereignty over all creation and his power to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. The saint wrote down these exact words which were dictated to her in ecstasy. "Lord Jesus, creator and sustainer of all things, you who turned water into wine and multiplied the loaves to feed the multitudes, bless this humble seed with your divine power. May it be a bearer of your mercy for this sick body and this afflicted soul." This first prayer should be recited 3 times while taking the seed in your hands before any preparation. Saint Teresa emphasized that words should be spoken with full awareness of speaking directly to Christ, not as a mechanical formula, but as an intimate conversation with the Lord. Each word must come from the heart. The saint wrote, "Because God does not listen to the lips but to the soul." The second prayer was for the specific moment of preparation of the seed. Saint Teresa received very precise instructions on how this preparation should be carried out, always accompanied by words of faith and trust. The prayer is as follows: "Holy Spirit, Comforter of the afflicted and healer of souls, descend upon this work of my hands. May your divine breath infuse this seed with the healing virtue that you have placed in all creation for the good of your beloved children." During this time of preparation, Saint Teresa recommended maintaining a spirit of profound recollection, as if performing a sacred ceremony in the very presence of the Trinity. She advised doing this preparation in a quiet place, preferably before an image of the Sacred Heart of Jesus or the Virgin Mary, and if possible, after receiving communion during morning mass. The third prayer, perhaps the most important of all, was to be recited at the moment of consuming the prepared seed. This prayer is an act of total faith in God's healing power and a complete surrender to his divine will. Saint Teresa received it directly from the lips of Christ during one of her most intense visions. My Lord and my God, into your hands I place my ailing body and my broken spirit. May this seed, blessed by your infinite love, be medicine for my ailments and strength for my weakness. If it is your will to heal me, may it be for your greater glory. If it is your will that I continue to suffer, may this act of faith unite me more closely to your redeeming passion. This prayer reveals Saint Teresa's profound spirituality and her mature understanding that true healing consists not only in physical healing, but in total conformity to divine will. The saint understood that God sometimes allows suffering to purify the soul and draw it closer to Him, but that He never abandons His children in tribulation. In addition to these three main prayers, Saint Teresa also received a special prayer for the most difficult cases when the illness was very serious or when the person had completely lost hope. This additional prayer was to be recited for 9 consecutive days, always after taking the prepared seed. Lord of life and death, you who raised Lazarus from the dead and restored health to all who turned to you in faith, look with compassion on this desperate situation. May your infinite power be manifested once again on behalf of those who trust solely in your mercy. The saint also recommended accompanying these prayers with the recitation of the Holy Rosary, especially meditating on the joyful mysteries when seeking physical healing and the sorrowful mysteries when spiritual strength is needed to endure suffering. The Blessed Virgin, Teresa wrote, is the most powerful mediator with her divine Son. Nothing pleases her more than to intercede for her sick children. For people who had difficulty memorizing these exact prayers, Saint Teresa provided a simpler but equally effective version. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, into your hands I commend my body and soul. May this blessed seed be an instrument of your mercy. This brief prayer could be repeated as many times as necessary during the preparation and consumption of the seed. The saint insisted that the most important thing was not the perfection of the words, but the sincerity of the heart that spoke them. God understands the language of love more than perfect formulas, she told her spiritual daughters. A contrite and humbled heart is worth more in the Lord's eyes than 1,000 prayers recited without devotion. In 2003, during restoration work on the former convent of San Jose in Isla, workers made a discovery that would forever change our understanding of the mystical teachings of Saint Teresa. Behind a wall that had remained sealed for more than 4 centuries, they discovered a small cavity containing several documents carefully wrapped in waxed cloth. These manuscripts, written in Saint Teresa's own handwriting, had been deliberately hidden by the saint herself shortly before her death. In an accompanying note dated October the 1582, just weeks before her death, Teresa wrote, "These papers contain revelations that the Lord has entrusted to me for future times. I hide them here so that they may be found when God so desires, when humanity most urgently needs His mercy." The main manuscript, titled by the saint herself, "On the Seed of Divine Mercy," contains extraordinary details not found in any of her other known writings. In the opening pages, Saint Teresa describes the vision she had received in greater detail. "I saw the Lord holding in His hand a small seed the size of a mustard seed, but which shone as if it contained a star. He said to me, 'Teresa, this is the seed of the tree that will grow to heal my children in the times of great tribulation.'" The most surprising thing about this document is that it contains specific information about exactly what this mysterious seed is. Saint Teresa writes, "The Lord revealed to me that it is the seed of the plant that He Himself pointed out to the ancients as a medicine for body and soul. It is small and dark, but within it resides a power beyond all human understanding. It is easily found in markets and fields, but few know its true spiritual value. In later pages, the saint provides fascinating details about the specific properties of this blessed seed. I was shown that this tiny seed contains within itself the ability to purify the blood, strengthen the heart, calm frayed nerves, and restore hope to the discouraged soul. But its greatest power is to create a spiritual shield around those who consume it with faith, protecting them from the evil influences that cause illness and misfortune. The manuscript also reveals that Saint Teresa received very specific instructions regarding the exact amount to be consumed and the appropriate frequency. The Lord taught me that a small teaspoon the size of a thumbnail is enough for a day. It should be taken on an empty stomach, always accompanied by holy water if possible, and followed by the prayers He Himself dictated to me. One of the most revealing aspects of the document is the detailed description of how the seed should be prepared to maximize its spiritual effects. Saint Teresa writes, "The seed should be gently ground into a fine powder, but this should be done while reciting the Hail Mary. For each word of this most holy prayer infuses greater virtue into the preparation. If ground without prayer, it loses much of its healing power." The manuscript also contains very clear warnings about who should not use this blessed seed. The Lord warned me that those who live in deliberate mortal sin, especially those who practice witchcraft or consult divers, should not touch this seed, for instead of healing, they will find greater disturbance. They must first purify their souls through the sacrament of confession. A particularly interesting section of the document is devoted to the effects a person can expect during the first few days of use. Saint Teresa describes in the first 3 days, the soul may experience a sense of inner peace that it had forgotten. In the first week, the body will begin to feel lighter, as if an invisible weight had been lifted. By the end of the first month, the improvements will be evident both to the person taking it and to those around them. The lost manuscript also reveals that Saint Teresa personally experimented with different ways of preparing and consuming this seed. I tried mixing it with pure honey and found that it made its flavor more pleasant without losing its effectiveness. I also mixed it with rose water and discovered that this combination was especially beneficial for people suffering from melancholy and deep despondency. Perhaps the most extraordinary discovery in these lost writings is a complete list of all the specific ailments for which Saint Teresa had observed the seed to be particularly effective. The list includes persistent headaches, stomach problems, general physical weakness, sadness of the soul, fears and anxieties, joint pain, trouble sleeping, and that spiritual illness that makes a person lose their zest for life. Toward the end of the manuscript, Saint Teresa makes a prophecy that is especially relevant for our times. The Lord has shown me that a time will come when men will trust more in their own inventions than in the remedies God has placed in nature. It will be then that this blessed seed will be more necessary than ever, for many souls will be lost in despair. Experts in ancient writing and historians specializing in Saint Teresa have confirmed the authenticity of these documents. Carbon dating dates the paper and ink to the 15th century, and graphological analysis confirms that the handwriting corresponds exactly with other known writings of the saint. One of the deepest concerns experienced by people who suffer is the feeling that their prayers don't reach heaven, that God doesn't hear them or care about their pain. But Saint Teresa, in her writings on the blessed seed, teaches us that the Lord always answers, though not always in the way we expect or in the time we desire. In recently discovered manuscripts, the saint accurately describes the signs that indicate God is at work in the life of those who use the seed with genuine faith. The Lord showed me that His grace acts like the dawn, gradually, slowly filling with light what was once in darkness. His miracles are rarely sudden, for He prefers that His children learn to trust in His goodness day after day. The first sign Saint Teresa mentions is a subtle, profound transformation in one's state of mind. Those who take the blessed seed with faith will begin to notice, perhaps on the third or fourth day, that their heart feels less heavy. It's not that their problems have disappeared, but rather that their ability to face them has been strengthened.